Okay, if I could have your attention, please. My name is Danny Gascoigne, graduate of class of 1969. I'm your moderator this morning. Hey. Thank you very much, thank you.
Reputation precedes you.
I am the handsomest guy in my class, that's why they got me up here. This is the Voices of Freedom, and we are honored today to have classes of 64, 69, and 74. For the first time, we have a civilian on our panel. Dr. Sarnoski is class of 74, and she's also a member of the Widener Board of Trustees. We can start off with the class of 64. If you'll state your names and cadet number if you had one, and where you're from, and how you got started at PMC. Go ahead, Gil.
All right, Gil Aldifer, class of 64, cadet number 9.
Gil, can you push that microphone closer to you? Thank you.
And I probably came mostly because my brothers are a graduate of 53, my father taught here. And I was exposed to PMC as a young kid and probably never thought about much else. And the price was right.
I'm Joe Holler, and class of 64, cadet number 188. And I came to PMC really for a number of reasons. One reason was that growing up, I was probably safe to say pretty influenced by my parents. My dad said, "You got to go to college." My mom said, "We've been through a lot, you need to go to college." And I was also influenced quite a bit by the post-war World War II experience. Had a very, very dear friend who was a combat photographer in the Pacific Theater. And you know, you hear these stories and you hear what's going on, and somehow it kind of struck me that a military college might be something I might want to pursue. And so I took the step and inquired about PMC and others. And a very good, wonderful person whom some of you know, Jack Gagan, lived in our hometown. And Jack made it a point when he heard that I was interested in PMC to pay me a visit. And that was one of a couple of visits, and lo and behold, next thing I was here. And never, ever, ever regret the decision for one moment. Being a PMC and having the military experience was absolutely wonderful.
My name is Mark Richards, class of 1969, cadet number 399. Why I came to PMC. I would like to preface my remarks by stating that many 18-year-olds, including me, do not exactly have rational thought processes. So, why did I come here? I wanted something different, the road less traveled, and I sure got it when I came here. Also, I knew at some point in the future I would have to serve in the military, so why not as an officer? And my father was a naval officer during World War II. So I came here, and I'm glad I did.
My name's Chuck Cantley, cadet number 41, class of 69. And my introduction to PMC came at the expense of me being a mechanic in a gas station and having Dr. Mahl as my customer. And I serviced his car probably for 2 years. And he always asked me when we talked, "What do you plan on doing?" I said, "Well, I'm really having an aspiration to go to West Point." And I had gone through all the rigmarole, didn't get the appointment. But he said, "When you make that decision or don't make that decision, please give me a call," which I did, because I didn't get in. And came down here, and he introduced me to Dr. Lindsay. We went around the campus at that time. I was just awestruck by the fact that this could be the career that I have been looking for. And as it turned out, I would never change the 4 years that I spent here. It would change my life. And I just hope we can influence some people down the road in these classes that we're working with, and you'll hear about that a little later. Come here because it's a great institution, and they will do themselves service to not only the institution, but to themselves.
I'm Joe Vaccaro, class of 74, cadet 264. Like everyone else here, I was lost as an 18-year-old, except I was lost with a guitar. I thought I was going to become a musician until I found out that there were 200 other people out there just as good as me and 45,000 other people better. So I needed to find something useful to do. And my dad and my uncles were in the military, and this was the right move. Plus, it was a lot closer than VMI to Citadel and Norwich. And it had a tremendous, tremendous reputation, and it still does. And it continues to move forward. I'm just honored to be here with this distinguished panel.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Sarnoski. My story is basically one that's quite practical. Of course, my mother raised us all to make sure that we would go to college, get a job. And economics begged that I needed to be local. I was raised in the west end of Chester, so it needed to be local, and I needed to get in. So being first generation, I applied to 2 colleges. One accepted me, one did not. And that is history.
Very good. It sounds like my career. I had one acceptance
Yeah,
right here.
yeah, that's right.
And that was good. We are being filmed for YouTube. It's going to go live. As a matter of fact, it might be on now. It's 10:30. We're supposed to go live. So we're going to ask the folks in the front not to throw anything at us up here, you know. Don't want to have a bad image. Why don't we start at this end this time, and tell us about your career. How did you end up going through all these years working through life?
All these years. Okay, so I was very fortunate in my choice to come to Widener. When I was here, I was really encouraged to do a lot of different things, get involved in a lot of different things. And I can't thank enough and value enough the support from the faculty and the staff. Excuse me. Anyway, my faculty advisor, she was one tough cookie. I don't know if anybody remembers Liz Thornton. But she was hell-bent that I would do not only my best, but I would do better than my best. And she helped to encourage me to do a lot of different things here at the time. It was also a really good time at Widener because it was changing. I was among some of the few women on campus, and it was a very, very dynamic period here. But I was encouraged to go to graduate school, which was never, ever on my spectrum, because remember, it was go to college, get a degree, get a job. And so, fortunately, through the encouragement here, I got myself accepted into Bryn Mawr, where I got a degree in biochemistry. And from there, I entered the pharmaceutical industry, and I entered it at a somewhat of a good time. I originally thought I was going to do research, but unfortunately, that wasn't the path that was called out for me. I got my first job in quality control. From there, my first job was in Hoffman LaRoche. I worked in Hoffman LaRoche for quite a long time, increasing levels of managerial responsibility. I hopped the bus in the 80s to get onto the biotech and the biopharmaceutical bandwagon. I went to a small startup, threw my hat into the risk ring for a startup company. Had a phenomenal experience there with the startup company and some of the things that we did relative to helping establish the rules for the new industry. And then from there, it was basically a small company, we got up by a bigger company, I managed to end my career as a senior vice president at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals.
PMC Widener really set me on an adventurous life. I was commissioned a lieutenant in the Marine Corps at graduation. I served 31 years, both active and reserve, and I retired in 2005 as the rank of Colonel 06. When I went into the reserves, it gave me the opportunity to enter my next phase, which was federal law enforcement. I became a special agent with Naval Intelligence, now known as NCIS. I did that for 5 years. And then I went into the Department of Justice. I graduated from the FBI Academy in 1986, became a special agent with DEA. When all that ended, I went back to Iraq and Afghanistan twice. And when that adventure was done, I was hired by the Department of Homeland Security as an instructor and curriculum developer for the Office for Bomb Prevention. And my team covered the Northeast corridor and the Southwest corridor of the United States. And somewhere in the middle of all of this, I managed to get a master's degree in education and special ed. And I thank God for every single day of this adventure, and PMC and Widener for lighting the fuse, and my family for all the support.
Where do I start? Of course, I graduated in '69, and I was fortunate enough, coming out of summer camp in junior, senior year, to get a DMS. So I had an option when we were commissioned to take my commission then or defer it, which I deferred for a year. Went to work for Ford Motor Company out in Detroit and spent the first 9 months in their management training program, things like that. And ended up in Fort Benning down in May of '70 at the IOBC. From there, I went on to Fort Ord, California, on orders for Vietnam in November of '70, or '70, I guess it was. And those were put on hold. Kind of wondered why that happened, because things were still, escalating at that point. And the following year in '71, as things began to dry down or draw down through the service, we got notified that between Benning, Carson, and Fort Ord, we were all going to be stabilized. No Army officer, no colonel, no general, and we had Hal Moore as our commanding officer at that post. Was going to leave post or go to Korea or go to Germany or go to Vietnam. And we were all part of the initial RIF, the RIF situation, and 5,000 of us were let go in December of 1971, thereby ending an RA aspiration that I had to make it a career. Which time I returned to Ford, went back from Monterey, California to Lansing, Michigan. When I arrived there, it was -12. I said, this has got to change. So I started interviewing again, and I ended up at DuPont here in Wilmington, Delaware. And I spent 25 years at the DuPont company. A variety of financial management positions, marketing and sales positions. Moved 4 times in 8 years for them. Ended up back in Wilmington, took an early retirement out of the Korean business, which I spent 12 years in, and retired in '97. And actually went to work for a distributor down in Florida, needed a little more sunshine. And we stayed there for 7 years before we got bought out by the Koch brothers, and then ended up coming back to DuPont in the flooring business and ending up in Atlanta. And there we were bought out again, and ended up going to a commercial manufacturer company out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and was a global manager for them for major Fortune 500 accounts in Atlanta, which included Delta Airlines, Ernst & Young, Coca-Cola, people of that nature. And any project that they had in the world, I had a team on their site working on their projects to make all their office environments employee-friendly, let's put it that way. So we sold a lot of business, and I retired from there in 2020, right after the pandemic was announced, and my quota got increased to $19 million, and I said, I've had enough. And ended up staying in Atlanta with my wife and my 2 kids, and we are happy to be back here.
Upon graduation in 1969, excuse me, I pursued an MBA at Temple University, and I followed that with my stint as an Army officer. And then I went into the healthcare field as a CPA, and I became the CFO at a large academic teaching hospital in Philadelphia, Jefferson Health. I did that for a number of years. I finally retired, and after that, I pursued a second career as an author, and I have written 7 novels on the Roman legions.
I'd like to start on just a few personal notes first. My wife and I have been married almost 60 years. She's back there in the red, 9 rows back. Almost 60. And we've got a great family. We've got a wonderful son and daughter. both of whom are very happily married. We have 2 grandchildren, one of whom graduated from Virginia Wesleyan and the other who graduated from the Citadel. So I've got my ring from here. My grandson has his ring from the Citadel. And boy, we knock him for 60. I like to think of my career as sort of 3 careers. The first one starting with the Army, was commissioned from Pennsylvania Military College, and then went to Fort Benning, Infantry Officers Basic Course, then on to Fort Jackson, where I served as a training officer. And one of the things that happened at Fort Jackson, it was wonderful, and I served with George Frank, who was our class president, and absolutely terrific guy, what a family. And I was tapped to help develop at the Army's very first training company for needy recruits. These were troops that were having difficulty in either learning or physical or even emotional or what we call motivational difficulties. So I got an opportunity to work with that program, and I'm very happy and proud to say that that particular program has endured to this day. So if you go to a training site, you will see a special training company there at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Another career I have, I left the service. I was thinking about doing a full-time career in the armed forces, but I had sustained several injuries during training, and it became apparent to me it just didn't make sense. And our company in special training company, having received national recognition, I was actually getting some good correspondence from companies to saying, hey, take a look at us. One of which was Scott Paper Company, which was right up the road. And Scott, except for its products, is no longer with us. So I joined industry. I spent 32 years in industry. That's my second career. And my third career is 18 years in higher education. And in industry, I went through several mergers and acquisitions, and they're always not very pleasant. In fact, none of them are very pleasant to go through. But my role was human resources and organizational effectiveness, and I really preferred the organizational effectiveness side. I earned my master's program while I was in industry, and that was a master's program in organizational psychology. I'm not a numbers guy. I just couldn't go for the MBA and that sort of stuff, so I went that route. And it really helped me tremendously because I developed a whole network of people who could help me a lot with some things we were trying to do in terms of transitioning organizations. And then a number of years later, I came on with Procter & Gamble, and that was the third merger and acquisition, which was extremely successful. And the story here is I worked for them just 6 years. And in Procter & Gamble, when you're on a leadership team, you're going to move. You're going to move someday to another location to kind of make room for somebody else to learn what you've been doing. And at the time, my wife's mom was very ill with cancer. My mom had just moved to Delaware, and I concluded that I can't do this. I can't stay with this company. So I spent a day prayerfully out in the Chesapeake Bay. And the next day I said, Ellen, you got to come out there with me. And we talked and that sort of stuff. Then the third day, which was a Monday, I walked into my boss's office and said, boss, I can't take another transfer. I need to leave the company. So I left Procter & Gamble with their help. And 6 months later, I started a position at Wilmington University in the graduate school responsible for the program of organizational management. And it was a wonderful ride. I enjoyed it tremendously. During the course of that venture, I earned my doctorate in organization change out at Pepperdine University. And Gas, you know about that university.
Right.
And it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And boy, if anything changes you besides the experience here at Pennsylvania Military College, that kind of experience has changed you as well. But it was a great ride. It was a lot of fun. And, here we are today. And we're still active and still doing great things. So that's about it for my background.
Gal Oliver, I also graduated in '64, commissioned in the U.S. Army, and went directly to med school. And active duty my senior year as a first lieutenant. From that, I was able to get married and pay my tuition. And from there, I did my internship at residency in a military hospital at Letterman in San Francisco on the Presidio, if you know where that is. It was a tough 4 years. And from there, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia, which is now called Fort Gregg Adams, renamed as, and got out of from Fort Lee. I got out in 1975 and practiced in this community for 33 years as OBGYN and retired in 2008. And it was a good 33 years.
Very good. In preparing for this, I got a chance to talk to some of the fellows and girls, and it's to tell you what a small world it is. Now, I had never met Joe Holler at all, and I asked him what kind of doctor he was, and he said it was organizational development or organizational change. And I asked him where he went to graduate school, and he said Pepperdine University. Well, turns out I was working, and was working out in Los Angeles, California, and I went to graduate school at Pepperdine also. And what's the chances of two guys from PMC going to Pepperdine University? None. It's a small world out there, really small
I
world.
went to Jefferson.
Okay, so we'll start back down with you, Dr. Aldifer, and if take yourselves back to when you first started at school. And with all you know today, what kind of advice would you give yourself, your younger self?
I don't think I had a lot of choice, and I can't. I really can't say what advice I'd give somebody, except college now with what's going on, I'd say, do you really have to go? Is it worth the money?
I thought a lot about this question, and I thought this one's the one that's a lot of fun. One conclusion, the advice that I would give myself in starting Pennsylvania Military College was, you got to remember something. There is no way you could do PMC alone. You can't do it alone. And from the moment you met your first sergeant, and the first sergeant commanded, "Third car, step out," you knew that you were going to have a busy night. You knew you were going to have a very, very busy night. And you need others, whether it's academic, whether it's military, whether it's cadet life. I found that you always need others. That's the common denominator. You just can't do it alone. So I'd say to myself, prepare yourself, be with others, make sure to be with others. And also, I'd say to myself, look, guy, you're 17 years of age, and you need some structure in your life. So that's the voice that was telling me. I wasn't smart enough to hear that advice, but coming into PMC, sure as hell got structure. We sure got it. And the other big lesson is, remember, you can't do this alone. And I think that's true in almost every aspect of life. Life is built on relationships, and here at Pennsylvania Military College, we formed such solid relationships that were just, you couldn't break them. You couldn't break them. And there was just a cord that was so strong. But you don't do this alone. You don't do this alone. Prepare for structure and be ready for it and enjoy it.
Well, the advice I would give myself is to stick to it and persevere. Those were not exactly all halcyon days back then, and we all faced some struggles, and it carried over into my life. I've had a streak of stubbornness in me that I persevered over the years, and I'm glad I went to PMC.
Yeah, being at that ripe old age of 18, or 17, 18, I would agree with everybody so far. Get in, be organized, pay attention, be obedient, and grow up and have the friends that you will have for life. And I've got a bunch of them sitting here in the audience and on the panel. And I wouldn't trade that for the world. Of course, the biggest thing that probably influenced me in that 4 years is getting inducted into PR with 4 of my brothers here today as a freshman, and having that structure. I mean, it was just phenomenal. I'll make one other comment about education and organizational effectiveness. Being organized in the DuPont situation, I actually taught in DuPont for 4 years around organizational effectiveness. And I had the responsibility for vision, mission, building high-performance teams, and planning and decision-making. So this is how influential this organization in college has been to me, as well as getting my MBA in '75.
I'm looking at my brother cadets out there, Danny, Dave, and Dave, and one of the things I'm going to say, another gentleman already said it, but I would listen to the upperclassmen, and one of the 2 things that they told us was cooperate and graduate. That was the first thing. Everybody remembers that. And the other thing, there was an abbreviation, I can't say in a mixed company, but basically what it meant was that you have to take care of yourself first, because if you don't take care of yourself first, there's going to be 2 casualties out there, you and whoever you're trying to help.
Well, I guess what advice I would give my 18-year-old self is really seize the opportunities in the university. It's very easy to get focused on your particular major line and the degree you're going after, but there's a myriad of opportunities here. And particularly, I would encourage my 18-year-old self to have taken a business course.
Okay, we'll start up here with the next question. And how well did the curriculum that you took here at school prepare you to be a leader or a manager and go on through life? How good was the curriculum that you took here?
Yeah. Well, from my personal experience, I would say it was phenomenal. I was really well grounded in all of the core fundamentals. I had to exercise and improve my critical thinking and communication. I'm still working on the communication, but really grounded me well. But I think what was more important, what I took from Widener was really being grounded, to make sure that you're always grounded on your principles and your values. Because whatever you're facing in life, whether it's a work challenge or a life challenge, you need to make sure that those decisions and you're dealing with those come from a point of principle and values.
This school was always a tight-knit community, and one of the things that I learned from it was to learn how to prioritize things and to be on time. My wife will tell you that. That's one of my chief things. If you're on time, you're late. And I learned that early on, that you need to be places early, you need to be respectful of other people, and you need to prioritize what you're doing, as well as set your day forth. I think it was Admiral McRaven that gave a fantastic speech on graduation, and he said, change the world, make your bed. Cadets did that every single day. And every single day, we produced educators, doctors, lawyers, warriors. So I think you have to have a purpose every single day when you get up. And PMC gave me that purpose, whether I wanted it or not.
Well, I was an economics major. As an undergrad, I did get my MBA in '75. And as far as, taking those philosophies and principles, into the business world, it really gave me an opportunity to work with my sales team. I was a sales and marketing manager all my life. Ended up as a VP of marketing and sales for one large company. Building teams and having them respect you for who you were and how you were handling them as people, because you just don't give them an assignment and say, okay, go sell this as a quota. First thing I did when I got to my job in Florida is I took all commission away. I made them all salary people. I gave them objectives, divided them into segments to do all their planning and sales work, gave them sales goals. They had to meet the company goal, they had to meet the segment goal, they had to meet the distributor goal, and ultimately, if they exceeded all that, there's a 3-tier commission or bonus rate, if you will. We bonused out 7 years straight and grew that business 28% year over year. Probably one of the greatest pieces of my business career going on. So taking it out here, we knew what organization was about. We were all in companies. We started in a squad. We went on to platoons. We went on to companies. We went on to brigades. So we knew what organization was all about, and paying attention to that structure and having that discipline is the one thing that I would probably say benefited me the most coming out of school.
I took postgraduate courses at both the Morton School and Temple University, and I found the academic load no more challenging than what I had here at Widener. And what I'm very thankful for when I attended PMC Widener was the courses taught me how to think, and that served me very well in my career.
Yeah, I sure agree with that. It teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to challenge. My coursework was economics, and I remember Professor Zaka being one of them. He was a great guy, and he challenged you. And I think I left with a sense of confidence, a real sense that I could do some good things and what have you. And I also feel I left with a sense of knowing what I don't know. And that was something that really helped me through life. And one particular example was a company I started working with. This was when I was still with Scott Paper Company in a natural resource environment, which was an organization that was so unique, so unique. We had over 500 people, and our job was to keep the mill sustained with wood and other resources. Well, the environment was so unique. As opposed to structure, it was very unstructured. And for the first time, I kind of felt comfortable as to, am I the right person here? And, my point here is that once I figured it out and realized what I didn't know, assimilating with the company was absolutely wonderful. And, you become part of something. And it kind of goes back to that notion of you have to know what you don't know, and you have to ask the question of what can I do for you? And I think PMC helped me to understand those kinds of values, to understand that the important question is, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And that brings on wonderful things when you have that figured out and have some horsepower behind you to make things happen for others.
I agree with Joe, and in my profession, I think I was prepared very well mainly to listen to other people, which I was a gynecologist and had to, and found that I was well prepared for my 4 years at Jefferson Medical College in Philly, and it went well. Thank you.
Very good. Here, we're going to move down to number 6, lighten it up a little bit. Starting with Dr. Aldifer, what was your favorite memory here of PMC?
Well, very little question about that, and that was a visitation by General Eisenhower in 63, May of 63, and that was a very enjoyable day. And we didn't expect his visit until it was announced, and we were somewhat surprised that he indeed came to PMC to visit us, but I look upon that day as memorable.
Before you end, did General Eisenhower let everybody off of tours? Did he say, okay, all the special punishment orders are forgiven?
No.
Oh, usually they would do that. When you had a big name guy, they would relieve everybody from tours.
Well, my favorite memory is absolutely crystal clear to me. I was a senior at the time. My roommate was Dick Eggers. Dick is sitting right down there. And, when you're in the dorm or in the barracks, you sure get to know everybody. And my wife's brother was an underclassman, a sophomore. And I remember going into his room once, and here I am, senior, he's a sophomore. I walked into his room, and I noticed a picture on his desk. And the picture is my future wife. Then I had to figure out, how do I get to meet this gal? I mean, how do I do this? Well, David and I got to know each other, very, very well. And one day he came to me and he said, "Oh, my sister is so ill. She's coming home from the University of Pennsylvania, where she was at the School of Nursing, and her parents are away, and she's sick." And he said, "I need to get to see her." I said to David, "Well, I've got a car." That was so we drove up there to Orland, Pennsylvania, and boy, was she ill. She was so ill. But that was step 2. And then step 3 was commissioning, and she helped to pin the bars on my shoulders. And that was cool. And then a year later, we were married. So undoubtedly, my first and foremost wonderful memory of PMC is seeing her picture on David's desk.
Well, this is an easy question for me. My junior year, I asked a girl to dance with me. I was a lousy dancer at a PMC mixer, and she's now my wife of 54 years.
Very good.
It's a big accomplishment.
Favorite memory? I actually have, I think, 2 that I can think of, maybe 3, but 2 for sure. The first one was when, as a freshman, I had already pledged PR with a number of guys in the room here, and sitting in my dorm room in Howe Hall, I get a knock on the door. Of course, they just burst in. They just knock and burst in, and in comes Dave Duthie and my big brother. Saddest looks I've ever seen on their faces, because we had just finished our 3rd session for blackball and whether or not you were going to make it or not. And of course, they give you the up and down of the whole situation, turn around and walk out. Nothing was said other than that. And about 5 minutes later, they come back in. Of course, I got tears in my eyes, and he's holding up this blue jacket, the national champions jacket, which we then all wore for the next 4 years. And we made it as a brother for PR, and that was probably my first. Second was the letter that I got coming out of summer camp from Colonel Ford, congratulating me on receiving my DMS coming out of summer camp, which then I knew I made the right decision, that I wanted to make the Army a career. Of course, I didn't have any idea what was going to happen after that, and unfortunately it didn't happen, but at least it was on the right road, and it gave me satisfaction that I can perform. And I was proud of what I did here at PMC, so they were the 2.
I have many memories, and they're all rapid fire. I think the first one is being recognized an old man of the Corps in December of '71. The second one was making Mother's Day corporal with my late roommate, Arthur Stokes. The third one was the last recipient of the John Lance Gagan Award, last Corps cadet to receive it. And the fourth one is an easy one, graduation. And finally, the fifth one was watching Bruce Springsteen when he played here.
Okay, so I guess my favorite memory really has to do with the camaraderie of my classmates. What was, I think, particularly interesting about it is that Widener at the time was a mixture of, we had cadets, we had civilians, we had co-eds, we had returning Vietnam vets, we had evening students. We had quite a mix of people, and it was just a very rich experience. And a second Bruce concert.
Let's start up here again. Was there a defining moment in your life while you were here at school?
Oh, there definitely was. My sophomore year, my advisor, Liz Thornton, came to me and said there was an opportunity for participating in a summer research session up in Rochester, New York. Now, I was born and raised in Chester. I hadn't been out of the Delaware Valley, maybe Jersey Shore, maybe Delaware Shore, but I really hadn't traveled very far. My world was very small. And the thought of going away, how could I handle this, how could I do this and whatnot. But I was encouraged to do it, I applied, and I did it. And it really opened up a whole world. Not only that, it was a wonderful experience to work with the people out there. We worked on an environmental monitoring project. We were charting the environmental conditions of a waterway up there in northern New York. It was just a phenomenal experience. And I got my first plane ride, I flew back from Rochester to Philadelphia.
Very good, very good.
For me, I think it was becoming a cadre corporal. It was really one of the first times that you're thrust into a leadership position and responsible for other people. And you quickly realized that you weren't ready for it. And this is the reason why you went to your upperclassmen and got yelled at quite a bit. And you realize that the one thing that leadership really means is being compassionate and understanding. And once again, knowing your job so you don't have two casualties up there. And finally, the fourth thing is what I said earlier, cooperate and graduate. The idea is to help everybody. And just exactly what the doc said, this school was a melting pot for diversity. We had everybody here. We had civilians, military. We had a couple folks in our class that were returning veterans from Vietnam. Really interesting gentlemen, and the things that they brought back to us about leadership and what to do and what not to do, and to try to keep yourself alive as a second lieutenant.
As a defining moment, I think I probably mentioned this, I'm sure I did. Becoming a brother meant a lot. I mean, the amount of time that we put into making it as a rook, into Pershing rifles and knowing the history of Pershing rifles. And then the ultimate satisfaction in 1969 was achieving the 11th time we became national champions. And that still remains the mark of the day. We are the 11th time winner of national champion.
Very good.
My freshman year, I was the Mother's Day corporal, and the next year, my sophomore year, I was on the dean's list. And I was just an average student in high school, and my parents were kind of astounded, and they said, "Who is this guy?" But it instilled a lot of confidence in me when I received those two awards.
A defining moment for me was, I mentioned this earlier, was when First Sergeant Bellinger said, "Third Carter, step out." He didn't say it quite that way. He had that certain intonation that you knew it was all business, And that was usually at somewhere around 11 o'clock at night, or it would seem that way, and then you just worked for an hour or so. So that was a defining moment for me to know that this college was business. It was business on the military side. It was also business on the academic side, because you came to realize, too, that yes, you could aspire militarily to do certain things, but you needed the academics that were just as important, if not more important. You needed both. And once I realized that with the help of people I were with the help of roommates, and it's amazing how you get to a point. And I came into PMC as a pretty undisciplined guy with not a great deal of structure. And PMC gave me that structure, and it also taught me how to learn and how to concentrate through studies. You had some hours of the day to do that, but boy, make the use of it. And just shut out everything in your mind to go after those books.
I can't say there was any one episode or occurrence during my 4 years. I think it was the entire 4-year experience that I found worthwhile, and it worked out.
To follow up on Chuck's comment, this homecoming also is a reunion for the fellows that were in the Pershing Rifles organization. That was a whole year of pledging and practicing and training, and at the end of the year, you come into the drilling side of it. Our class 69 had 11 people involved in Pershing Rifles. 5 were in the staff that ran the regiment that we were in, along with a lot of other ROTC organizations, and 6 of us drilled for 3 years after, sophomore, junior, and senior, or some joined in their sophomore year and drilled junior and senior year. And we used to travel all over the country and compete against other ROTC units, and we always won. I mean, we beat the living hell out of a lot of those other schools. And, we were all in uniforms. Half of them be in civilian clothes, half would be in uniforms. And, it was really an accomplishment, But it took a lot of practice and dedication, and you had a real theme or a real drive to get out there and win, And I know we won 2 national championships in our 4 years, which was good. It was every other year, so we won 2. It was good. All right, well, one question here about traditions, and we can kind of break it up because we have civilian representation now too. So what traditions you think should be left for homecoming? Where do we start? Do we start with you or down there? How about you, Gil? You start with traditions.
Well, I think the broom drill.
Well, I think the broom drill too, but also to the right down here in the audience is a group of 4 people that are your cadets. No, you're not, but I'm not sure what you are then, but. Oh, they are, okay. I got you, you're the master sergeant. We understand what that's all about. But I'm looking forward to seeing the role that you play in the football game tomorrow, because I'm looking forward to being kind of special. And I don't know what it's going to look like, but I think that's a golden time to see what the university has in the way of military work and making military work. And so I'm looking forward to see that and how you all perform. I think that's so important. Another thought I had was, I don't know if we do this, the school has a school flag, Pennsylvania, or rather Widener University flag. I'm assuming it does. Or if it doesn't, we should have one. But I was thinking that on that flag, perhaps there could be a streamer that says PMC. That's just a thought.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Robertson and the Widener staff for making us feel so welcome. I've been to a number of homecomings, and I think they do a terrific job. And I like the broom drill also.
Yeah, I'd have to echo that as well, but you have to remember, our traditions stem back 150 years. And that's a cornerstone for this university. And we shouldn't forget everything that we're doing to memorialize everything that's taken place in that 150 years. The challenge is, what traditions do we add that represent Widener? And I think that's a significant challenge, and go along with what was just said about having a streamer. You could actually do a streamer from the broom drill point of view for every single war that this university has been involved in. And that would also be a new tradition that could be handled.
I couldn't add anything better than that. This is actually our second reunion. We've been bouncing all over the world for the last 40, 45 years. And it's finally nice to settle down again. And God willing, this won't be our last, but everything these gentlemen just said, I have to echo.
Now, before you answer, you have broken the glass ceiling here as the first young lady in the Voices of Freedom. This is the first time we have a Widener class that's mixed, old cadets and civilians. So what traditions would you like to see started for the civilian side of the school?
Well, I don't know that I have any one particular suggestion, but I do know that it's very important to remember and respect and celebrate the rich history of Widener as we go on, but have those evolve to cover the changing alumni. Our alumni are growing very rapidly, and we need to do that. And there are a lot of things that have been started through different groups and organizations within the university. And so I think those are very rich, but how do you keep it and evolve it to match what the growing needs are of the growing alumni?
Okay. There has been a question about the broom drill. The staff, I think, is taking a look at the broom drill, and they're asking for our suggestions about if there should be any changes in it. Apparently, they feel that maybe this group is getting a little long in the tooth, and they see people limping out there, or maybe, one guy holding up another. And if you any ideas about what could change, maybe keep it a little closer to the stands, or beat the drum slower. And no suggestions. Okay, so we'll keep it all the same. Is there anybody in the audience that has a question for this crowd? No? Oh, come on, you got to have something out there.
What's a Mother's Day corporal?
Okay, good question. What was a Mother's Day corporal? Who would like to answer?
Like,
Mark?
I can answer that. I don't know how far the tradition goes back, but each Mother's Day, there would be a parade, and a freshman was selected from each company, and they were promoted to Mother's Day corporal. So it was an early promotion and a recognition of achievement.
Yeah,
Close to time.
Yes.
Can we take one more question? if
Right,
that's
Sure.
yeah.
just to give a little follow-up to what
I
Mark
got
said.
the watch on.
Follow up to what Mark said. Mother's Day represented when we all were recognized from being rooks to being freshman cadets. So having the promotion on Mother's Day was definitely an aspiration and a growth.
Okay, well, thank you all on the dais. This has been a very pleasant outing, and thank you out there for your attention. And the young man filming, hope everything turned out okay. All right, so thank you, and that ends up this Voices of Freedom.